I'm Karen.
I'm Barry, and we own Circus of Books.
I thought it was just a bookstore with a circus theme.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new live session of Price Support Services. I'm Fernando Mayoral, the Marketing and Communications Director, and welcome. Ray and Xavier were not able to be here, but I'm here with you, so I'm just gonna run the interview. And this time we have two very important and guests here with us. Chad Turner, CEO of the LGBT Chamber of Commerce, and Michael Sharpton. He's actually vice chair of Price Support Services and also the owner of Scorpio. Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome.
Well, this week we have a very interesting topic, LGBT businesses, or businesses who attend the LGBT community. And have you seen the documentary before?
Yes. Yes.
Nice. So you can all see that these kind of businesses were really important back time, like a place for our community, a place where they can get together or just let their curiosity run, express themselves. So let's talk a little bit about the documentary. What do you think, guys, about the actual role of these businesses for our community?
I think that one of the things that it reminds me of is in the Charlotte area before mainstream entertainment centers and bars and restaurants and event venues became comfortable affirming or even accepting of LGBTQ folks. Really, you found community in the clubs that were LGBTQ. You found community in bars that were LGBTQ, and then, of course, there were local bookstores. The first LGBTQ bookstore of memory was actually opened by Donaldson King, and he's one of the founding fathers of most of our LGBTQ organizations in Charlotte. And that bookstore ran for years, and obviously we have White Rabbit. And we have other LGBTQ venues, but I think that these places provided a space for people to have that community, but also a place to explore curiosity, a place to have authenticity, and to show up as your whole self and not worry about the stigma of what was going on in the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Yeah.
Well, I absolutely agree, Chad. I think, strictly speaking from the Scorpio, we've been in business for a little over 50 years, and we've always prided ourselves as being, a safe haven for our community. And, up until, like Chad said, mainstream has become much more accepting and affirming of our community. That was our social outlet, and that's where, we had to go to meet and mingle, and certainly internet and apps and everything else has certainly changed the scene, the bar scene within our community. I think one of our challenges, particularly in the bar community, is while mainstream bars have been very accepting of our community, but there still seems to be a stigma of them coming to, quote unquote, a gay bar. I've found that over the years of being in Scorpio, they seem to be very uncomfortable coming into a gay bar for whatever reason, but they're certainly comfortable with us being inside their house.
Yeah, for sure. It's a little bit difficult for straight friends just to be around. But for sure, there is still work to do, like to make them also feel welcome. during the documentary, we also saw a little bit of a part of like the religion part, um, as Charlotte is also a little bit into religion in North Carolina. Um, have you guys experienced this part, like of comments of or being told that we are doing something wrong, or by the way of running gay or promoting the gay community?
I think there was a time, and I'm sure we'll both agree, where there were certainly 20, 30, 40 religious protesters at any type of major LGBTQ event, and we've seen that dwindle over the years. Just like there is a brewery on every corner, we have to remember that on every other corner in Charlotte there is a church, and a lot of us in the Charlotte region probably grew up in that type of community where the church was the center of the community. That's the reason why a lot of us stayed in the closet. It's the reason why some of us had difficulty in being our authentic self, or coming to work, or coming to our home as who we are. And the religious aspect of it does weigh heavily, I think, on our community, even still today. Thankfully, we do have churches that have entered into the arena, such as, Caldwell Presbyterian, and Wedgwood Church, and St. Luke Missionary Baptist Church, and Sacred Souls, and there's numerous churches we could name that have reached out and crossed that boundary, and become a part of the fabric of the LGBTQ community. But I think, given what I've seen in the documentary, I know that she was very, very, very tied closely to her Jewish faith, and she ensured that her children had access to that and experienced that. But her husband wasn't as tied to that faith. He was very business. Even though he was a believer, it was her that was straddling the fence on whether or not she was doing the right thing, versus he was just interested in creating a successful business, and providing for his family. And I think that a lot of us live in dichotomies like that, within our own lives, where we may have been raised a certain way, or we may have accessed a community in a certain way, and then we're on this other side, and we deal with that. And I think that as Charlotte has grown, while they're not there yet fully, I think that we are seeing more and more houses of faith and community organizations reach out, and come across the boundary, and actually be more affirming, accepting, or even inclusive of our particular community.
I agree with Chad. What I've seen, particularly from a personal standpoint and from a business standpoint, is that while there are churches, local churches, that have been very affirming, on a national level, churches have been a little less eager to our community, to accepting our community. And certainly in the last 3.5 years, I feel like there's been a little bit of a regression, of out of all the progress that we've made. I feel like in the last 3.5 years or so, that we've regressed a little bit, just given our current political status in our country.
Yes. Also, well, about the documentary, they were also running that kind of business, which is still, I feel, like not very open still, like the porno and the toys, that part of the store. So how do you feel, guys, about like that kind of business, or for the community, because it is also very important to promote that the self expression, or like with the stores, with the toys, and the idea of making more open, maybe in bars, or like we don't have a store in the Scorpio, but what do you think about that? Just to make it more accessible for the community to learn and to have access to all of that kind of products or things that we for sure use and need.
I would say that first of all, we have to realize that those same stores are existent in the straight community as well, or the mainstream community. Um, because one is labeled an LGBTQ type of store doesn't take away from the fact that the same type of store exists on the other side. Just the same way as there's mainstream or straight bars, there are gay bars, and so that doesn't change the validity or the need for the particular merchant who is doing that business. We do live in the Bible Belt, and there is an expectation that any type of establishment like that will receive scrutiny, because that's par for the course. However, being president of the LGBT chamber, one of the things that I need to remember, and I need for our community to remember, is that if a business is able to receive a business license from the state to do business, and they're able to establish, a full-on business that does everything properly, pays their taxes, contributing citizen of the community, and they're providing a product, whatever that product may be, it's legal and it's viable. And that, it's something that you can choose to support or not to support. You can choose to go in there. Now, obviously, they did sell more things. They sold books. They sold T-shirts. They sold underwear. They sold novelty items, gifts, things of that nature. And so there was a lot more to this than the porn and the other items that they may be selling. But again, if you can find it on Amazon, I'm not going to fault someone to throw up a storefront and hang a shingle out front and try to sell something, because we live in a society where you should be able to open up a business and make money just like anyone else. Now, who actually becomes patrons of that business is going to be determined on how you market and what you're selling. And so, if you can gear that towards the LGBTQ community and they have a safe space to go buy those items, then you're going to corner the market on that. Same way with females, or same way with straight individuals. And so I commend any business owner that has a mindset to make money, support their families, and become successful, regardless of what the product is, as long as it's legal and you're able to do it within the confines of what the structure is in your particular city or county or state, then I'm all for it.
I absolutely agree with Chad. I think in the documentary, unfortunately, like Chad said, you can find just about everything on Amazon now, and so it takes away, for a brick and mortar store successful, they really, I think, have to be involved in whatever community, whatever niche market they're going after. And so I think that's what we're finding now, where they have these two really huge stores. I think now we're going to see more boutique type stores, smaller stores that really cater to niche markets versus, a huge box store that tries to cater to everyone.
Yes. well, that is for the documentary. Now we can talk a little bit more about your own businesses. You have a gay bar, or a bar club. You are the CEO of the LGBT Chamber. Michael, can you tell us a little bit the story of Scorpio? How did it happen, and some challenges that you have had through all the years?
Well, I've only been involved with Scorpios for about 8 years now, so it's. But from what I gathered from the previous owner, they opened in 1968. Certainly has been in its current location since the mid 70s. It's been a mainstay within the LGBTQ community of Charlotte. I'd like to think that it still is. We've always been a safe haven for our community and still are. And it's some of the challenges that we met, like I stated earlier, it's certainly, while we always want to be a bar, known for that. That's what we have been and always will be. Certainly, we have to figure out how to attract other segments of the Charlotte community, and certainly broaden our customer base, and that's been a real challenge. As I mentioned before, internet dating sites, the internet has certainly, why go out to a bar, when you can sit on your couch and find a date, and that's one of the things that we certainly have struggled with, is how to incorporate the internet generation, to say, look, no, come out, have that personal interaction, and be a part of the experience, and not just experience it through a 10-inch screen sitting on your couch.
Yes. And also, well, you have one of the biggest places or scenarios for like the drag community. How do you feel about that? And what is the role of Scorpios, if has one, to promote and make it bigger, that shows?
Well, the Scorpio has always been a show bar for the drag community, and certainly we're very proud of that history that we have. Unfortunately, a lot of bars have seen sees that that's a real draw for our community. Before mainstream has taken up drag, if you wanted to see drag queen, be a part of that, you had to go to a gay bar. Now, on any given night, there's 3 or 4 mainstream bars that have some type of drag show, which is fantastic for the entertainers. And I'm glad that they get that exposure. It's something that it's an art form that everyone needs to see, and certainly I'm glad to see that mainstream is embracing that type of entertainment now.
Yeah, and we love it.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, with all of these Corona and the bars being closed, for sure you have had time to think about like what to do next. So what can we expect for Scopios in the near future?
Well, I as soon as we're allowed to open, and right now that's still up in the air. Unfortunately, the governor in phase 2 removed bars from reopening in phase 2. Currently, he has allowed approximately 85% of all businesses that own a ABC permit to reopen. There's a very small segment of the service industry that they have not allowed open, and that being private bars. So it's been very discouraging to. We feel like we've been singled out, which is why we've sued the governor to try and force him to allow us to open under the same guidelines that he's allowed restaurants, breweries, distilleries. Look, I'm very happy for all of those businesses that were allowed to open. That's fantastic. That's a positive step. However, I feel like that, private bars were singled out unfairly and unjustifiably, not to allow to be reopened. With that being said, we'll let the courts play this out and see what happens. But in the meantime, Scorpio will reopen. We will welcome our community back into our building. We will ensure that we follow all of the safety guidelines to ensure that we operate in a safe manner to protect both our employees and our customers.
Yes. And you have been doing or running the drag shows every Sunday, so that's fun.
Yeah, we do an online drag show every Saturday night, which is, it just gives our entertainers an outlet to continue to practice their craft.
Yes. And well, Chad, let's talk about queer business. I don't know if you have stats of like how many LGBTQ businesses are in Charlotte?
So there are about 30 to 32,000 small businesses under 50 employees in Charlotte. And of that 32,000, we have an estimate where what we do with the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, we have an estimate that there's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of between 280 to 340 LGBTQ small businesses that are under 50 employees. And that's just in the city proper. That's not counting Mecklenburg County and the region. The challenge is during COVID. I want to echo what Michael was saying. The challenge has been we originally didn't have even the breweries in phase 2, and we quickly jumped to that to assist with that. And then we signed on to something with that. And the most recent thing is obviously the legislature's tried to pass a bill to open bars. And of course, the governor is going to veto that because he's already said he's going to veto that. And we're trying to make sense of it, because if you can have people arm to arm in a Walmart with very little sanitation, why are we not allowing other businesses to open that have similar ability to do sanitation and things? And so we've been working really hard with some of our LGBTQ businesses and allied businesses to advocate with the governor, with the county, to get some assistance on that point. But queer business in Charlotte is really good. However, yesterday we lost a 30-year-old business that was owned by a lesbian business owner, Carpe Diem. She also owns Earl's Grocery, and she decided she wasn't going to open. We also learned from the Stanford Business Report yesterday, Stanford University, that 41% of Black-owned businesses, not LGBT, across the nation, under 50 employees, have shuttered during COVID. That's 41%. Now, the National LGBT Chamber is also qualifying that almost 30% of our LGBTQ businesses will also shutter during COVID. And here we're looking at a spike in numbers, and those spike in numbers are actually telling us that we may be pushed back to the beginning of phase 2 with stay-at-home orders. And I don't know that the small business community can withstand that. And I hope before the government would even make a decision to go back that direction, that they would put a plan in place to undergird and stabilize the businesses that are going to be heavily affected, that aren't considered essential. And that's what we're working on the back end. If you ever want to know what the LGBTQ chamber, or the Black chamber, or the Latin chamber are doing, we're on the phones, having Zooms, fighting for places like Scorpio and those places to actually be able to at least get access to funding to remain stable on the operating table, or to assist them with reduced hours or reduction in operating revenue. And so, that's one of the things that's really, we've changed our course with the LGBT Chamber to try and assist and advocate for these small businesses.
A couple of things here, Chad. One of the things, the current bill that's on the governor's desk, I just need to clarify, it's not to allow us to open, but to allow us to open outside.
Okay.
I think both of you are very aware of the Scorpio. That is not a business that is very conducive to, I can't move my entire operation out into my parking lot.
Right.
And be successful at it. So while that will help some of the bars, you have a lot of the bars and taverns and type places that, they're in a strip mall. So, and they don't have outdoor space. So, while the bill helps a few, it doesn't, it's not the lifeline that the General Assembly has put out there. So
right.
I just want to say that. And the other thing that I would like to see is, as we go through these different phases, the governor and his administration has not, at least, from my vantage point, reached out to the bars and nightclubs and say, what can you do to help us assist in opening. They haven't reached out for our input. They sit in Raleigh and they go, okay, this is what you're going to do. And, it's just this entire thing now, it's a pandemic and no one was really prepared for this. And I know we're sort of flying by the seat of our pants, but we're at 84 days into this, 87 days now into this, and I've been closed. I feel like we have just literally been forgotten about. I know Chad and the Chamber of Commerce is working very hard to help us advocate for us, but from a government standpoint, I feel like they're just like, oh, it's okay. We've got restaurants open. They can get a beer at a brewery. They'll be okay. Well, there's a whole. I think in Mecklenburg County, there's 1,100 ABC permits, a little over 1,100 ABC permits. Now we're down to, they've allowed to open just under 1,000 are now allowed to open. So, it's a struggle. It's a struggle, obviously, business-wise, to figure out how, for, 87 days now, you've had no income coming in, and yet bills are still piling up right and left. Chad, one of the things we're struggling with is in the state of North Carolina, all ABC permits always are renewable at the end of April. Well, they extended that until June 30th. Well, we're quickly approaching June 30th.
Right.
And there's been no movement on either extending that date again for those bars that have been closed. So it's, that's certainly one of the things that I hope we'll see in the next few weeks, that there's an extension on that. For those that don't know, ABC permits are very expensive. So it's certainly going to be a challenge for those of us who have been closed to figure out how to renew our permits if they don't extend that some way.
Right.
Yeah.
You're right. The one of the things is I know that small businesses under 50 employees in Charlotte, only around 1.5% to 2% have actually received any assistance from the federal government or the state of North Carolina. And so when we found out the city council had received $154 million from the CARES Act, we immediately reacted and started working with them to force usage of a third of that money towards small business in a grant form and to eliminate any hurdles. And so we wrote a plan with the Charlotte Small Business Coalition and the Latin Chamber and the other chambers. We wrote a plan that comes in 2 tiers, and I don't know how many employees Scorpio has on the books, but it's in 2 tiers. So the first tier is 1 to 5 employees, and the second tier is 6 to 25. And the first tier you can receive up to $10,000, and the second tier you receive $25,000. And the only requirements is you are a viable business in the state of North Carolina. You can provide a bank statement with the business name on it or the owner's name on it, and you can provide some type of other documentation with the business name on it. And your business is actually in a corridor as well, one of the opportunity corridors. And so by being in the opportunity corridor, you're also eligible for other funds. And these funds do not have to be paid back, and they're to assist with the bills that have piled up, because we know that that's happening. City Council this past Monday approved that unanimously. And so now they're going to open that up on June the 22nd. And I actually just got a message back. I text someone up at the governor's office while we were talking about the ABC permits, and they stated that they are looking at extending that to July the 31st currently. And so we'll see exactly what comes out of that. But I also want to get you the information for the grant program, which is called Access to Capital and Small Business Relief, because that's money that's on the table that don't have to be paid back, and you're eligible for that.
Great.
And it just passed, so it's not something that has been just absolutely thrown out there for everybody. And so they're telling me that June the 22nd is when the application is due. But before that happens, we have enough time to send out the information about what documentation is due. And really, the only documentation that you have to send is stuff you already have, and that's a bank statement, a lease on a building, stuff like that.
Okay.
And I think that although that's not gonna cure all of your issues caused by COVID, it's definitely not, but it's something that you're eligible for, that came from the federal government, that should be in your hands, and at least soften the blow of some of the utilities and things, because just because they don't shut you off does not mean those bills aren't still piling up. And
Absolutely.
and that's going to be an additional problem that we're going to have to deal with as Charlotte when we're at the end of this thing, is evictions and leases and utilities and things that have piled up because everyone has been unable to do this. And in order to get all that paid for, people are going to have to go back to work and actually have revenue coming in. And so I will shoot you over in an email all that information, so that way it's available to you. And then I will also give that to you as well for support services to be able to put in with this video as well.
Yeah, we can share all the information.
And just, once we open up, I think the other challenge that many, particularly in the service industry, are going to face is we have to get over our customers' fear of coming out. I mean, one of the things you see constantly is, oh, hey, I don't know if I want to come out, for the first few months. And so, for us to get back to the level that we were pre-COVID, we're looking probably 12 to 18 months of getting back, regaining the customer's confidence that it's safe to come out, even though we take all the precautions to make sure that our business is safe, and every business is doing the same thing that we're doing. We have to somehow, that customer confidence has to be there, because they're just not going to come out, if they don't feel safe. And even at restaurants, restaurants can operate at 50% capacity. Well, there's no restaurant that I know of that in their business plan made, arrangements to work at a 50% capacity.
Yeah.
For, long term. And it's just, these are challenges that, while great, yay, you're open and you have a little bit of revenue coming in, that's not sustainable over the long term. Some of the challenges, I think the pandemic and the response that the government had towards curbing the spread, this is going to be 18, 24 months before we see businesses that make it start turning any type of profit again.
Yeah, hard times. And yeah, this is not going to disappear soon. And also we are probably in the position of maybe getting back to the stay-at-home order in near future. So Chad, you as a business owner too, and you both, for all the business owners that we have in the community, and also the people that have lost their jobs, that are considering to maybe, since there are not more jobs, starting their own business, what will be a recommendation of in what industry or what to do in order to prepare again if we go back to a stay-at-home order?
Well, the first thing I would say is choose something that if you're going to open up a business to make money, choose something that you can do virtually, if at all possible. If not, choose something that's considered essential. Let's take Auto Bell, for example. The first day of closure, I leave my house to go to my office, and I look and I see Auto Bell with a line wrapped around, because they all of a sudden started sanitizing the inside of healthcare workers' cars for them. And they immediately became essential. Joann's Fabrics was open only because they provided patterns to make masks with. And so determining what that essential business is, or determining that you can be a counselor or a coach or a teacher. Maybe you're a homeschool teacher via online and you help people with their kids during the day. I don't know what that's going to look like, but what I do know, and this is I'm going to speak directly to the people who are watching this, is it is the LGBTQ's community, it's the community's responsibility to help our LGBTQ owned businesses. And I don't mean that in a rude or an abrupt way. I mean it in a challenge. I challenge you to visit. We created a website in response to this because we kept having people ask us, hey, how do we find a list of these businesses? And even though they're in our directory on the chamber website, we wanted this to be non-chamber related because we also wanted to highlight businesses that aren't necessarily members of the chamber. So we created a website called spendlgbt.com, and it has all of the LGBT owned businesses listed in Charlotte. There's over 300 or 400 listed there in the region. Their websites, what their business model is. Can you pick up? Can you drop off? Or can you just like ask them for their Cash App and send them some money to help them cover bills? And there are businesses like the Scorpio that aren't going to be able to open, and then phase 3 is very vague, and we don't know what's going to happen. And these institutions and things that whether it's that or if it's Chasers or if it's anything in our community, we have to think about that as a community. And do we want to see these places go away, or do we want to step in and help out where we can help? Because here's my opinion. If you go to the club every weekend and that's your thing, and you go to a drag show or you have a couple of drinks, you're probably staying at home at some point during that stay-at-home order, or you have an essential job, or you're making your normal amount, or you're sitting on an extra $600 a week in unemployment because the federal government's giving you pandemic unemployment assistance. It doesn't take much to send what you would have normally spent to that particular business to help them get through this, because ultimately we love to wear the t-shirts, we love to march in the pride parades, we love to be involved when there's a party, but it's these institutions that help us create the party that need our help right now. They help us provide a space of safety and of haven for us to go and to be a part and to be a community. They celebrate big events with us, and they sponsor things throughout the year for these nonprofit organizations. And now it's these organizations that need a lifeline, or they need a life preserver. And it doesn't take much for everybody in the community to pledge $10, $15, $25 and send that in on a weekly basis and help these businesses to stay afloat. They're not asking you for a profit. They're not asking you for their revenue. They're just asking you to stabilize it so that way the business doesn't die. And I'll say that across the board, whether it's Black-owned businesses in the Black community, or it's Latin-owned businesses in the Latin community, it's LGBT business owners. If we're going to take care of our community, we have to put our money where our mouth is, and we have to literally reach out and figure out, what is it? Like if we ask Michael, pick up the phone and call Michael and say, how do we help Scorpio? Do we create a fundraiser? Do we have a Scorpio week and say, let's create a fundraiser on Facebook pages and let's just figure out how we get this stabilized until we get to the next month? What does it look like? I don't know what it looks like. All I know is we can't just be supportive of the LGBT community with a t-shirt or with a rainbow flag. We have to realize that there's real stuff happening on the ground, and there's business owners that have given hundreds of dollars to our organizations throughout the year that we need to step in now and help them survive.
Yes.
I absolutely agree, Chad. Unfortunately, our community, LGBT community, has really been hit hard by this pandemic because a lot of our community works in a service industry. So, we completely understand that everyone is struggling right now. And, you add in everything that's happening, and it's difficult. But, I want to assure everyone, the Scorpio will be there. I know that every bar owner, and I can only speak for the bar industry, but, all of us want to be there for our community. And that's a source of huge pride for us that we're able to support all of these these nonprofits and sponsorships that we do. But it's I have been very grateful for the show support that we've gotten. I get phone calls on a weekly basis of, hey, are you open? How can we help? And it's very gratifying to know that our customer bases are there for us. But on the flip side of that, it would be the landscape of the LGBT bar scene would be, you know, it's going to change. I don't know what it's going to look like. The 4 or 5 bars between Chasers and the Scorpio and 316 and Sidelines and Argon and Bloodshed. I don't know what it's going to look like. And the fact that from the stats that Chad gave earlier, that if 40% of these businesses close, it's a very tough pill to swallow for our community that, these places aren't going to be there for us.
Yes. Also, well, obviously, this is a time to change business models and develop new things. Maybe, well, the website, sell online. But it's also like a time where business owners can learn new things or apply for different programs. About the LGBTQ certification, Chad, what would you say about that? Is it a time where businesses can put some effort to get it, and what are the benefits?
Well, one of the great things that's going on right now is LGBT certification is happening virtually, which means you don't have to go through the long process because we can't be in person to do it. And LGBTQ certification puts you forefront in situations with organizations, municipalities, and things like that that will help you get contracting. They will also help secure events for your facilities. They push groups. They push pageants. We've seen all kinds of things come through LGBT certification. But beyond that, the other thing is the effort of the community to coalesce around how to properly market our LGBT-owned businesses and how to ensure that we're utilizing the Charlotte Regional Visitors Authority, the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance, the Urban League, and other organizations throughout Charlotte, and including our LGBT businesses in those listings and making sure that we are maximizing every effort to get that information out to the forefront of these institutions. But now, on the flip side, that doesn't help businesses that are closed currently in phase 2 and phase 3. And so I am a huge advocate on the other side that we're sitting on money, whether it's a rainy day fund with the city or we call it reserves or whatever, and we have small businesses that are closed by no fault of their own. And my mom always said you shouldn't leave a job till you have a job. I feel like the city and the county and the state shouldn't tell you to close unless they have a plan to make sure your bills are paid. I err on the side of community safety, and I believe in that. But I also know that people have poured their heart, soul, their life savings, their entire life and passion into a small business. And to have something like that jerked out from underneath you without any assistance or without any fault of your own can be devastating, not only to the person or the family that's affected, but it can be also devastating to the community that particular business is located in. And so talking about the bar scene changing, Charlotte has seen numerous LGBTQ institutions and bars closed over the past 10 years. We've gone through a metamorphosis. And there is the mainstays of the Scorpio, which is the longest standing one, and you have the Woodshed, and you have Chasers, and you have 316 and Bar Argon, and you have Sidelines. But these institutions, should they disappear, the places that we celebrate pride and pageants and results and community, like when marriage equality was won, the places that we go to do that, or the rugby team goes and celebrates a win, or there's a particular holiday or we're honoring the Pulse nightclub or whatever it is, those institutions will fall by the wayside if we're not careful about how we support. And I can, talk about LGBT certification, and I can talk about phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, but none of that means anything to a small business owner who gives up every dime that they have to ensure that their employees stay paid or their doors stay open, or they just are able to keep the building that they're in. And what that means to me is, we as a community, as much as we love to fight for the things that feel warm and fuzzy, we love to fight for marriage, and we'll get out there and we'll fight for all these things that we fly the rainbow flag under. We need to be able to fight for those business owners that are in our community and fight to help them keep their business open. And that also means show up and talk about why they're not able to get an SBA loan. Why can they not get funding from the state? Why are they not receiving their unemployment? Why is the sole proprietor not able to clear this hurdle? And that's what pisses me off as a leader in the business community, is we literally are losing the fabric and the landscape of what makes Charlotte unique and what makes our gay community unique, because of our inability to react properly to it. Instead of trying to gird up everything that is big and fancy and is a bank or an airline or a Target or a Walmart or these institutions, it's these mom and pops that make Charlotte what it is. And it's those places where you celebrated your birthday, or you went after your wedding, or you celebrated when marriage ruling came down, or maybe you went and watched your first drag show, or maybe you had your first kiss because you were a gay person and you had to come across the river from Gaston County to go to the Scorpio to be who you really were. Those are the most important places in the gay community, not only in historic fashion, but also in our current fashion, because I think that we need to realize, if these places die, it's not going to be just because of COVID. It's going to be because we didn't step in.
I want to make sure that, the ripple effect of our clubs and bars being closed, it's not just, the revenue that we produce for the bar. It's certainly our employees. It's the entertainers. It's our security contract. It's our garbage pickup contract. It's, CO2 contract that we have. It's the beer and wine contracts that we have with the local distributors. The ripple effect that this has had is huge, and and it's so much more than just our businesses that I literally spent the first month on the phone negotiating. Okay, let's pause this contract. Let's put this contract on hold. And it's the ripple effect of this close, of just my business being closed. Probably 200 to 300 people easily, were affected by just my one little business being closed. And you multiply that times the 300 or 400 businesses, LGBT businesses in the Charlotte area. So you see the huge ripple effect that this has had on our community.
Yeah, for sure. We have to remember that these kind of businesses, they are for us, and they have been a huge part for our entertainment, but also for our development as a community, and a place where all of us feel free. So for sure, we have to put a step there and fight for all the businesses. Thank you so much, guys. It has been a really, really nice talk, and it is very important to support, even though the LGBT community, but also the LGBT business community. You are part of us.
Absolutely. We certainly always support our community. We appreciate the support that the community has shown Scorpio over the last 50 years, and certainly look forward to continuing to operate within the community.
Yes. Chad?
I think that one of the things that we can take from this is, I know we started off with Circus of books, and we morphed into something that was totally different. Is that those individuals working within our community are extremely important. And like Michael said, the effects beyond that are felt by people that are not just LGBTQ. And jobs are created. One of the things that I meant to mention, of the 30,000 plus small businesses, they employ 43% of the working citizens in our city. And so if that particular group of people is that impacted, there's going to be people that don't have jobs to return to. And we're going to create a whole class of people that will need to be lifted out of some type of poverty situation and will need to be on some type of services. And it's a lot easier for our government to stabilize a small business than to deal with the fallout at the very end. It's always easier to prevent a fire than it is to fight a fire. And that's very important for us to remember.
Yes. And yes, we are going to share the information also to help our small business community. And well, thank you guys. It was fun. And I can wait to see you in the next session.
Thank you, Fernando. Chad, thank you for all that you and the Chamber do for our community.
Thank you. Thank you for all you've done. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Guys, have a great weekend.